At the wedding, as everyone awaited the bride's entrance, I had no idea I was about to experience the greatest scandal of my life. Amidst the flowers, the music, and the smiling guests, I would uncover a betrayal that would turn that sacred altar into a stage for my revenge. Minutes before the ceremony, hidden behind a door, I overheard my fiancée confessing to her best friend that she was still in love with her ex. Her words were like daggers in my chest. "If he asked me right now," she whispered, "I'd leave everything." The woman I was about to call my wife had been deceiving me from the very beginning. My first instinct was to run, to disappear before facing the ultimate humiliation. But the more I thought about the elaborate lie she had constructed, the more a fire ignited within me. I would not be the silent victim of this betrayal. I would turn this wedding into a spectacle of truth. While she was getting ready, believing her deception was flawless, I was planning my revenge. I discreetly called the sound technician, asking him to change the order of the files for the large screen. I typed a few sentences into my phone and took a deep breath. If my life was going to fall apart, at least it would go down in flames. When the church fell silent and all eyes were on me, waiting for my vows, I took the microphone. The guests expected words of love, but instead, they heard the bride's secret messages read aloud. The shock was immediate, and that was only the beginning of the expose. Growing up, I never imagined my worst nightmare would unfold on the day I was supposed to be the happiest man in the world. I had always dreamed of building a family, of marrying the woman I loved, and starting a real life. I met my fiancée 3 years before the wedding. She seemed perfect, charismatic, sweet, intelligent, the kind of person who lights up a room. I fell for her too quickly. Perhaps that was my first mistake. Our friends called us the model couple. Everything seemed ideal. She planned every detail of the ceremony with a sparkle in her eye, and I believed our love was solid. I never suspected that, behind the scenes, she was carrying on secret conversations with her ex-boyfriend. What I discovered, just minutes before the wedding, shattered my understanding of trust. The woman who was supposed to be my wife, the person who had promised to love me forever, confessed she had never gotten over her old flame. I could have just canceled everything, but I couldn't bear the thought of walking away as the naive fool. The pain of betrayal morphed into a dangerous fuel, vengeance. And in that moment, I decided that no one would ever forget this day. Looking back now, the signs were all there, flashing like warning lights I chose to ignore. She was always glued to her phone, claiming it was just work or messages from her mother. I believed her. I didn't want to be the jealous fiancé who snooped, but sometimes she would smile at the screen in a strange way, as if she were in another world. One night, as we were lying in bed, her phone buzzed. She shot up, hurried into the living room, and returned minutes later. When I asked, she simply said, "It was just my friend. She needed to vent." I believed her because I trusted her completely. Another time, she disappeared for hours, saying she was helping a cousin. When I called, the connection kept dropping. She blamed it on bad reception. A week later, I found out that cousin hadn't even lived in the city for months. Even my closest friends made suspicious comments. One of them told me, "Man, sometimes she seems distant, like her head is somewhere else." I just laughed it off. I never wanted to believe the love of my life could be deceiving me. These memories came flooding back like stab wounds on my wedding day. How could I have been so blind for so long? But none of it compared to what I heard just before walking to the altar, the words that destroyed my faith in everything we had built together. Just minutes before the ceremony, I slipped out a side door to catch my breath. My heart was pounding, and I needed a moment to compose myself. In the quiet hallway, I heard voices coming from a private room set aside for the bride. The door was slightly ajar. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but as I passed, I heard my name. Instinctively, I stopped. I recognized her voice immediately. This wasn't a rehearsal of vows or nervous chatter. It was a suffocating confession. With a choked voice, she told her best friend, "I still love him. If my ex showed up now, I'd leave everything. This wedding is just what's left. I have to maintain this perfect image for everyone." My legs felt weak. The woman I believed was the love of my life had never truly chosen me. I was just a facade, the safe plan to show the world, an ornament in a life built on lies. Each word pierced my chest like a blade, and I could barely breathe. I thought about fleeing, about vanishing before everyone saw me as the cheated fool. But instead, a cold fury washed over me. I would not let this betrayal pass in silence. If she wanted a show, I would make our wedding the final act of her farce. In that instant, the idea of revenge was born. In a few short minutes, the altar would cease to be a stage for union and become a stage for the truth. I stumbled back to the sacristy, feeling as if I'd been punched in the gut. Her words echoed in my head. "I still love him. This wedding is just a facade." I knew I couldn't carry this alone. I called for my two closest groomsmen, my older brother and my best friend. They entered the room, their faces etched with concern when they saw my ashen expression. I broke down, repeating every word I had just overheard. My brother's eyes widened in disbelief. "Are you sure you heard that right?" I could only nod, my throat too tight to speak. My best friend, however, wasted no time. "Dude, without proof, no one will believe you. They'll just think you have cold feet." That's when the idea struck. We needed her phone. I was almost certain I would find the conversations with her ex. That would be the key to exposing her. The problem was how to get it. My brother took a deep breath. "She probably left it charging in the prep room. Brides are focused on the dress, the makeup. The phone gets left behind." He was right. My best friend stepped forward. "Leave it to me. I'll go in pretending to bring her water. If the phone's there, I'll grab it." I agreed, my hands trembling. It was risky, but it was my only chance. Minutes later, he returned, her phone in his hand. My brother already had his laptop open, ready to sync anything we found. With shaking hands, I started scrolling through her messages. It didn't take long. Recent texts filled with "I miss yous." "This wedding means nothing. If I could, I'd run back to you." With every line I read, my rage grew, and so did my resolve. "This is it," I said, holding up the phone like a weapon. "This is the proof. And today, in front of everyone, she's going to get a taste of her own medicine." The music began to play, its soft melody filling the church. The guests rose with smiles, phones ready to capture what they believed was the beginning of a beautiful love story. Standing at the altar, my legs felt like lead. My brother and my best friend, my accomplices, stood firmly by my side. They knew this was no longer a wedding. It was the prelude to a scandal. Then the main doors swung open. There she was, stunning in her white gown, radiant under the adoring gaze of her family. To everyone else, she was an angel. To me, she was a lie. Each step she took down the aisle felt like a new cut in my chest. I watched her smile, wave, and act out a happiness that never existed, and no one noticed. Only I knew the truth I held in my hands. When she reached the altar, our eyes met. She smiled, and for a fleeting moment, I almost gave in. But then I remembered the messages, the damned words I'd heard behind that door. The rage returned like a punch. The priest began the ceremony. His solemn voice echoed off the walls, but to me, it was just distant noise. I was counting the seconds until the vows, the moment she believed she would hear a declaration of love. Little did she know, she would hear her own betrayal broadcast for all to hear. The priest handed me the microphone, and all eyes turned to me. The bride smiled, expecting sweet words. The guests aimed their cameras. A hush fell over the church. I took a deep breath, swallowed hard, and began. Today is an unforgettable day, a day when the truth must be spoken before everyone. I saw her smile widen, thinking I was referring to our love. She had no idea the weight those words carried. I continued, measuring each phrase. You all came here to witness a union, a promise of loyalty and fidelity. But a marriage without truth is nothing more than a beautiful play. The guests nodded, some dabbing their eyes. I looked directly at her. Her smile faltered for a second, perhaps at the intensity in my voice. And I don't want to hide anything from anyone here. Today, you all deserve to know the real story. A murmur rippled through the pews. She tried to take my hand, but I pulled away. So, before I declare my love, I announced, my voice ringing with newfound strength, I want to share some words that are not my own. They are words spoken by the person who was supposed to be here for love, but who, in truth, never stopped belonging to another man. The air grew heavy. The bride's eyes widened in horror. The guests exchanged confused glances, and in that instant, I unlocked my phone. With the microphone in hand and the church in absolute silence, I began to read, word for word, the confession she never imagined would echo in public. I will read some messages exchanged by my fiancée. My voice boomed. She went pale. She tried to whisper, don't do this, but it was too late. I opened the first conversation and read aloud. I'm getting married, but it's not for love. It's because he gives me stability. With him, I'll never have to worry. A gasp went through the church. I glanced at her parents, who bowed their heads in shame. I continued without mercy. I don't feel anything when I'm with him, but I have to keep up appearances. Everyone thinks we're the perfect couple. It's convenient. Some guests covered their mouths in shock. I saw my mother wiping away tears, my father clenching his fists. Want more? I asked, holding the phone high. The silence was deafening, so I read another message. If my ex wanted me back, I'd leave in a heartbeat, but since he didn't, I'm going through with this wedding. At least I'll have a husband who won't abandon me. The bride lunged for the phone, but my brother stepped between us. Not now, he said firmly, and she recoiled in panic. The whispers had turned into a loud buzz. If anyone here still thinks I'm overreacting, I announced, prepare yourselves, because what I'm about to show you leaves no doubt about who I was about to marry. I gave a nod to my best friend. In an instant, the large screen behind the altar, meant to display romantic photos, flickered to life. Instead of our smiling faces, her secret messages appeared, projected for all to see. The first was a conversation with her ex. There it was. Her confession that she had never gotten over him, that he was still the love of her life. And right below it, his reply, asking why she was marrying me. Her answer hit me like another dagger to the chest. It said she needed stability, that I was stupid enough to believe every word she faked. An uncomfortable silence fell over the church. The screen changed again. Now, it was a chat with one of her bridesmaids who was standing right there on the altar. My fiancée was saying she felt absolutely nothing for me, but that the wedding would be perfect and she would walk out of there like a queen. And the friend, her supposed confidant, was replying with words of encouragement. She had claimed no one would ever find out. The disapproving gazes of the guests immediately turned to her, and she froze in humiliation. And then came the cruelest blow. Another text exchange with her ex. What if I come back? He asked. And she replied that she would leave everything, that this wedding was nothing but a facade, that her heart beat only for him. The guests began to murmur loudly, indignant. Some stood up, saying they couldn't believe what they were seeing. But the worst was yet to come. The screen displayed screenshots from a WhatsApp group with two of her bridesmaids. My fiancée was saying that marrying me was a guarantee, that she would never want for anything by my side. Her friends laughed, telling her to put on a good act at the altar, adding that I would pay all the bills while she had fun with the one she truly loved. The church erupted in whispers. Some people shook their heads in disapproval. Others got up to leave. The bridesmaids were pointed at, judged before everyone. It was at that moment that the bride's father stood up, his face red with rage, his voice thick with a pain that he could no longer contain, ready to say something no one expected to hear. I can no longer remain silent, the bride's father said, his voice ringing through the church. This is not the first time I have seen my daughter destroy a good man because of this character she insists on calling love. There was another, a decent, hard-working young man who truly valued her, and she threw it all away to run after that lowlife who never respected her, who always treated her like she was nothing. The guests held their breath. The bride's eyes widened, shocked by her own father's exposure. He continued, each word a hammer blow. This man only comes to you for fun. He's never had the courage to commit to anything. But still, you insist on crawling after him while men of value are cast aside. I never imagined I would have to say this, but I am ashamed to be your father today. This is not what your mother and I taught you. These are not the values we instilled in you. Her mother began to cry, hiding her face in her hands. The bridesmaids lowered their heads, unable to look at anyone. The guests were paralyzed, as if struck by the weight of his words. Standing at the altar, I felt a mixture of pain and relief, because for the first time, it wasn't just me exposing this farce. The truth was now coming from her own family. The bride fell to her knees, begging for mercy, but I knew the mask had fallen and there was no going back. I didn't want to hear anything more. Not the bride's sobs, not the indignant whispers of the guests. I felt the air in the church suffocating me, as if the walls were closing in. I held the microphone for a moment, took a deep breath, and looked at the priest. My voice came out firm, though laced with bitterness. Forgive me, Father, for wasting your time here today. But don't feel too bad. I wasted my time too. I lost years of my life believing in a lie. The church fell silent. My fiancée, still on her knees, tried to grab the hem of my jacket, but I stepped away. I saw the desperation in her eyes, a silent plea, but there was no room left for pity. I handed the microphone back to the priest and straightened my jacket. My brother stood beside me, ready to leave with me. My best man, on the other side, did the same. I was not alone. This wedding was over before it even began. The sound of murmurs exploded behind me, but I was already walking towards the exit. The bride was crying loudly, screaming my name, trying to run after me. The bridesmaids tried to hold her back, but she struggled against them. The scene no longer belonged to me. I was no longer a part of that theater. But before I could cross the church threshold, I heard her desperate voice. Please, give me a chance to explain. It's not what you think. I stopped for a second, but I didn't turn around. She ran to me, her makeup smeared, her trembling hands trying to grab my arm. Yes, I said horrible things. I sent messages I shouldn't have, but it was a moment of weakness. You know I was confused. The guests watched in absolute silence. Some shook their heads, others whispered in disgust. I remained motionless, letting her speak, just so everyone could hear. Reus, I don't love him anymore, she insisted, her voice choked with tears. It was just nostalgia, a longing for a past I hadn't properly moved on from. But you are the one who is here now. I chose you. That should be enough. Rage burned inside me. She still had the audacity to call that a choice, but she didn't stop. She grabbed my jacket and almost shouted, Don't you understand? I needed to feel secure. He never gave me that, but you did. I knew with you I would have stability, a decent life. That's why I agreed to marry you. I just wanted a guarantee. A collective gasp went through the crowd. Her words echoed like knives. It wasn't remorse. It was just a confession that she had used me as a shield, a resource, a plan B. I looked down at her, still clinging to my jacket, and felt nothing but disgust. My voice came out firm, clear, for everyone in the church to hear. You just confessed, in front of everyone, that you never loved me, that you only wanted someone to finance your charade. And you know what's worse? You don't even realize how low you've stooped. She was babbling now, trying to convince herself more than me, but I was merciless. You talk about security, about stability, but you never knew what real love was. Love isn't using someone as a shield. Love isn't crawling after a man who only wanted you for fun, who never had the courage to claim you. Love is not turning your life into a play and expecting everyone to applaud. The bride collapsed to her knees, sobbing, pleading, Please, don't leave me. I can change. I swear I can be the woman you deserve. I leaned in close, so our foreheads almost touched, and I spoke softly, but each word cut through the air like a knife. You had years to be that woman. You chose to be a coward, and today, finally, Your mask has fallen. I stepped back slowly, straightened my jacket, and without looking back, I added, I didn't lose a wife, Tibal. I escaped a fraud. The silence in the church was broken by a collective murmur, a mixture of shock and approval. I knew that from that moment on, there was nothing left connecting me to that sham of a marriage. I walked towards the door. Behind me, all that remained was the sound of her sobs echoing from the altar. As I stepped out of the church, I felt the cool air on my face, as if I could finally breathe after years of being suffocated by a lie. Behind me, chaos was spreading, guests arguing, bridesmaids crying, and the bride herself, a crumbling mess at the altar. A few friends came to hug me outside, telling me I had done the right thing. Others just shook their heads, still in disbelief. The story was already on everyone's lips, and I knew that in a few hours it would be all over social media and the town's group chats. I couldn't sleep that night. The adrenaline was still coursing through my veins. So, when my phone buzzed in the early hours of the morning, I wasn't surprised to see dozens of messages from her. First came the pleas. Forgive me. I was confused. Then came the justifications. I just wanted security. I was afraid of the future. Finally, the veiled threats. You will regret leaving me like this. In the days that followed, she tried to find me. She came to my house crying, saying she could change, that we could start over. She even went to my mother, begging for a chance, as if she could manipulate my family the same way she had tried to manipulate me. But there was no room for it anymore. Each of her attempts only made it clearer what I already knew. There was no love, only self-interest, cowardice, and a sick neediness that made her humiliate herself for someone who never respected her. And I, looking at it all from the outside now, could only think about how blind I had been for so long. Looking back, I don't feel proud of what happened, but I do feel relief. Relief that I saw the truth before I signed my own sentence of unhappiness. I didn't lose a wife. I got rid of a lie. I won't say I came out unscathed. I was naive. I lost years believing in someone who never saw me as a man, only as a safety net, a guarantee. That hurts. But I learned that the worst prison is insisting on holding the hand of someone who let you go long ago. I don't tell this story expecting applause or to pose as a hero. I tell it because I know I'm not the only one. Maybe you, listening to this, have felt that same emptiness, that same feeling of being used, deceived, made a fool of. And if that's the case, I hope my story serves just one purpose: to show you that there is life after the lie. Because in the end, dignity is non-negotiable. True love doesn't need forced proof, and it certainly doesn't need masks. And if the mask falls, be thankful it fell before the altar. Look, I don't know about you, but to me, this bride showed the worst kind of betrayal. Not just the emotional infidelity, but the blatant manipulation. Using someone as a plan B while chasing an ex who only humiliated her, that's more than a lack of character. It's cowardice. And I'll say it, the complicit bridesmaids who knew about the whole dirty secret are almost as rotten as she is. Anyone who covers up for a cheater is a cheater too. Now, I want to know your opinion. Did the groom do the right thing by exposing everything at the altar? Or should he have simply canceled the wedding in private? Would you have the courage to expose a betrayal like that in front of everyone? Have you ever been through something similar? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I want to know what you think. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to become part of our big family and not miss the next stories. Every week, there's a new story that might just open the eyes of someone who needs it. Until next time.